If you look at survey data, women are much less in favor of free speech than men. Wokeness tended to show up in the most unexpected places. I think the moment that I knew wokeness was different than PC or any of the old previous iterations was when people started getting fired from NFL teams or from NASCAR. Why is NASCAR displaying wokeness? You would think that would be the last place you would want to look to find it. And it didn't seem really to be ideological at all. The common pattern was feminization.
Have you ever heard of the Great Feminization? No? You're about to. Mark Manson tried to distance himself from the manosphere and got cooked by his own words.
That would be a broader definition than I would give to it.
You defined it as sexist, and so obviously much broader.
Dr. Anna went after Dr. Orion and got destroyed by her own audience's blind spot.
Are you afraid of the competition, Dr. Taraban?
Why would I want to serve a man?
I think I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. Oh, this guy is using his perceived expertise as a psychologist to spread a very dangerous anti-woman message.
Two different people, two different platforms, same exact collapse. You already know the pattern. Somebody just put a name on it. Her name is Helen Andrews, writer, former senior editor at the American Conservative, and the author of an essay that's been detonating across half a dozen major interviews for weeks straight, The Great Feminization. What she describes, in her own words, over and over on every single one of those shows is exactly the mechanism you already watched play out twice. This isn't two isolated incidents. It's a pattern. Let her cook.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think sexual harassment is very bad. Good that we have laws against it. But I think some of the reaction to the article I wrote that was negative came from people who just really don't know what the law mandates today. People out there who read it did not believe me when I said that you can be sued for not hiring enough women at your company and for not promoting enough women at your company. But that is truly the case. One of the most famous gender discrimination lawsuits in American history was the Sears case, which was launched by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission in 1980 against Sears, the big retailer. Specifically, they alleged that Sears was channeling women into non-commission sales positions and away from the commission sales positions, which tended to be more irregularly remunerated because it's a commission sales position. So you had good months and bad months, but you generally got higher pay. Sears responded to this lawsuit by saying, look, the statistical disparity is there. You're right. Our female employees tend to prefer lower paying but more stable remuneration packages. We've tried to get them interested in this one and they just won't do it. But the EEOC said, no, it's only because you are biased against women that you have this statistical disparity. And the thing that makes the Sears case so famous in the annals of these lawsuits is that their case was entirely statistical, purely statistical. They did not have a single woman who claimed to have been discriminated against at Sears. All the women that Sears called said, we love it. We love this company. They're really great. They're a great place for a woman to work. Now, eventually, after 6 years, a judge ruled in Sears's favor. So Sears won that case. The EEOC did not prevail in their purely statistical case, but it took Sears a lot of money to defend against that lawsuit. It did drag on for 6 years. It was not like they said to them on day one, if you don't have a client, you don't have a case. And the way that the law resolved this question of whether you could have a purely statistical case was to say it can't be just statistics. You do need somebody who claims to have been discriminated against, but it can be primarily statistical. So it is simply true that if your company has men overrepresented in management or in employees overall, that can be the basis for some woman to come along and file a lawsuit against you. And that has occurred in many, many businesses, and it usually doesn't make the headlines.
You just heard why men's rights activists exist, not because they hate women, because many of the frustrations they talk about aren't just about individual women. They're about incentives. They're about institutions. They're about laws and policies that shape how men and women interact. If you believe those incentives are fair, that's your conclusion to reach. But pretending they don't exist doesn't make them disappear. Once you start recognizing the pattern, a lot of modern dating and a lot of modern entertainment start making a whole lot more sense. Let's continue.
She said that men developed rules of interpersonal behavior adapted to war and conflict with other tribes, whereas women developed rules of behavior consistent with conflict within the tribe and with particularly their female rivals. The example of that difference that I think clicks most easily for people, or at least that I find that most ordinary people today recognize most easily, is that men are much more likely than women to have a concept of the honorable opponent, to be able to fight someone bitterly, even to the death in war, and yet at the end of it, be able to shake their hand and say, I respect you, and say, good game, fellow, and return to some kind of basic status quo of, yes, we were fighting to the death a moment ago, but I nevertheless respect you and honor you, and I'm willing to operate within rules of conflict, and the conflict's over, and now that it's done, we can be friends again. Women tend to be slower to reconcile. I was surprised but pleased to discover that this is true even in primate species, that when they observe the behavior of chimpanzees, that females who get into conflict are slower to reconcile with their female rivals than males. I don't know, there must be something to it if even chimps are doing it. But women tend to not have that attitude of good game, let's shake hands and put bury this conflict, bury the hatchet. Women tend to simmer and continue conflicts indefinitely.
This is pure gold. Why? Because this is an indication of why women make such effective foot soldiers for a system that was never built to hold them accountable. Think about it. Women have no problem taking money they didn't earn and calling it equal pay. We already showed you exactly what that looks like with the U.S. women's national team.
Is there a memory that stands out to you right now in this moment?
I mean, probably equal pay chance after the final.
Women have no problem taking ridiculous amounts of child support and alimony in divorce court, walking away financially ahead regardless of who actually won it out. Why? Because once a conflict gets reframed as a grievance instead of a contest, there's no finish line. Men can fight bitterly, shake hands, and move on. Andrews' whole argument is that women, as a group, tend not to. The fight doesn't end. It just changes shape and changes rooms. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And you can't blame men for not wanting to play with the stove again.
The weakness of the wokeness is cultural Marxism theory for me is that I saw wokeness erupt in areas of our society that are not remotely Marxist, like big business, Fortune 500 companies. Wokeness tended to show up in the most unexpected places. I think the moment that I knew wokeness was different than PC or any of the old previous iterations was when people started getting fired from NFL teams or from NASCAR. Now, why is NASCAR displaying wokeness? You would think that would be the last place you would want to look to find it. Or Wall Street firms. These are not hotbeds of wokeness. And it didn't seem really to be ideological at all. The common pattern was feminization. That is, if you look at survey data, women are much less in favor of free speech than men. Typically, if you ask women, would you allow to speak on your campus somebody who said that transgenderism was a mental illness? Would you allow to speak on your campus somebody who said that Black Lives Matter is a hate group? Women are much more likely to say, no, shut that down. And men are much more likely to say, I disagree, but let him speak and we'll talk it out. Wokeness seems to me like a repudiation of rational debate. And as I read through this essay by the pseudonymous Jay Stone, it seemed to, he made the case that these woke patterns of behavior match female group dynamics in ways that are sort of deeply encoded in human society and have been explored by experts and found to just be ineradicable.
Do you understand now why Mark Manson debated the manosphere? Because the objective isn't necessarily to determine who's correct. It's to signal which side you're on. That's why someone can dismiss an entire movement without engaging its strongest arguments. The position itself becomes the message. And once the label has been applied, misogynist, toxic, dangerous, the debate is effectively over before it begins. That's why we've spent so much time on this channel playing original clips in full. Because if you're going to disagree, you should at least disagree with what was actually said.
We're sort of seeing that play out now on various college campuses, what the effects will be. But it was amazing to think that they got rid of affirmative action in university admissions without knowing what the outcome would be. When it comes to things like the workforce, these programs for women and for other groups have been in place for so long now, for decades really, that just like with the SFFA case, nobody knows what would happen if you got rid of them. President Trump has gotten rid of a lot of DEI programs since the start of the year, since the start of term 2. And we are just going to have to wait and see what effect that will have on the U.S. workforce. It is way too early to tell, but there have been news stories in places like the Associated Press showing that I think the latest count is 350,000 Black women have become unemployed or left the workforce since the start of the year, which is a pretty big number. And Black unemployment is going up now, even though white unemployment is stable or down. So those two are diverging in a way that they usually don't. Now, it is way too early to attribute either of those developments to the end of DEI. It is definitely way too early to say anything like that or to even come to any conclusions at all. But these affirmative action programs have been around for so long that nobody really knows what would happen if you got rid of them. So we don't really know what Trump's anti-DEI steps, what effect that will have on the American workforce. Now, to bring it back to feminization, it is my prediction that if you got rid of these thumbs on the scale, that the problem of the great feminization would take care of itself, that the demographics of a lot of these institutions would change in a way that basically the problem would solve itself.
This is exactly why I keep calling Black women the canaries in the coal mine. Helen Andrews isn't claiming she already knows the outcome. She's making a prediction. For decades, affirmative action and DEI became part of the hiring landscape. Now, those policies are being rolled back. Nobody knows exactly what happens next. But if Andrews is right, the first place you'll see the effects won't be society as a whole. It'll be the group that benefited the most from those policies. That's why she points to reports that roughly 350,000 Black women became unemployed or left the workforce last year. Is that because of DEI ending? She explicitly says it's too early to know. But if that trend continues, don't just see it as a statistic. See it as a signal. Because if the canary stops singing, the mine is about to change for everyone else.
And actually, one of the incidents, sort of personal anecdotes that set me off on this line of inquiry was not from me, but it was from my late father. My father was a lawyer in private practice for a very long time. But towards the end of his career, he decided to take a break from private practice and join an NGO for disability rights because my younger sister had disabilities and he felt passionate about that issue. So that's what he did. He left private practice behind and joined this disability rights NGO as their legal director. And he loved that work. It was so beautiful seeing him find purpose at the end of his career towards what ended up being the end of his life. But once when I asked him, how's work going? How's the new job? He said, it's the funniest thing, Helen. At my old job, everybody just did their work and they left you alone and there wasn't a lot of management. And, I love all my new coworkers. They're wonderful and the work is so full of meaning, but I do spend an awful lot of my time managing everybody's feelings now. Like whenever we make a decision at work, I need to make sure that everybody feels like they participated in the decision making. And that never used to come up at my old office. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's nonprofit work is like that. And I said, hang on a second, Dad. I got one question for you. What was the gender balance at your old office and what's the gender balance at the new one? And it really was, all male at the old place and predominantly female at the new place. So that was his personal experience, but it was surprising to me that it wasn't instantly obvious to him why he had to spend so much time managing people's feelings at the new job, that it was obviously because they were ladies. So I think for a lot of us, we kind of tend to have blinders on and not see that gender dynamics are at the bottom of a lot of these differences between workplaces.
I said that some people were upset by your essay. One such person was Kathy Young over at the Bullock. We haven't asked her on the show, so let me read out some of her remarks and you can respond to them. She says, Andrews has waded into this morass with an ultra-simplistic message for those on the right. Everything they hate in modern American culture can be blamed on women, or at least on women's social and political empowerment and their large-scale entry into public life. That message seems to be quite popular. Andrews' talk was reportedly the big hit of NatCon. You did a speech, kind of version of this at the National Conservatism Conference, and the video got 170,000 views. So she's saying you're just bashing on, you're beating up on women, you're blaming women for everything that's wrong with the world, and it's a cheap shot and it's not fair, and she doesn't recognize it, and she's pissed. What do you say to Kathy?
Kathy Young has become one of my most dedicated haters. Anytime I write anything, controversial or otherwise, she tends to pop up from the lob peanuts from the cheap seats. So hi, Kathy. Thank you for being my most dedicated reader. In terms of the substance of her argument, I think the most important response I would give is this. Other people who are skeptical of feminism, going back all the way to Phyllis Schlafly, took gender differences as their starting point and then asked, given that these are the differences between men and women, what are likely to be the changes in our institutions? How is this likely to play out if institutions tip to being majority female? The important thing about the article I wrote and the position I am taking is that I did not take gender differences as my starting point. I began with the observation that our institutions changed radically in 2020. Wokeness really did mark a significant departure in how our institutions function. So given this huge, unprecedented, otherwise inexplicable, massive social change called wokeness, what could possibly be the explanation for that? So I didn't start with gender differences and saying men and women are different, therefore I think more ladies is going to be a disaster. I started with observing a disaster and asking what could possibly explain it. And I think that the most simple explanation is feminization.
This is what I'm talking about. She looked at the problem and asked, why is this happening? She didn't draw conclusions before she had the data together. And she landed on a conclusion that sparks hate anyway. Welcome to the club, Helen. This happens to every woman who looks at the problem objectively and can't land anywhere else except that men were right. Cassie J, Nora Vincent, rest in peace. They all asked the same question. Why is this happening? And yes, they were biased going in to some degree. Both of them started as feminists trying to prove something. They just kept proving the opposite.
I think that as long as institutions remain feminized, you're still going to have the threat will still be there.
And your treatment plan would be to end affirmative action and retain the idea that we shouldn't discriminate against people, but assess that on the basis of whether someone's actually been discriminated against, as opposed to the number of women you have at your company.
That's right. Although in some cases that might not be sufficient medicine. I think one of the most compelling pieces of evidence to me that the great feminization is not entirely natural. It's not just a product of women have now had a chance to compete, and it turns out they're better at everything. It's not just a natural result of women out-competing men, which is something that a lot of feminists say, right? They say, well, why is your newsroom full of ladies? Because ladies are great journalists. I don't know what to tell you. The piece of evidence that persuaded me that that's not what's going on is the way institutions tend to become more and more feminized with the passage of time. If it were just a matter of women outcompeting men, you would expect institutions to reach 50-50 gender parity and then roughly stay there, if you assume that talent is equally distributed. But instead, we see that institutions that reach 50% women tend to then become 52, 55, 56. The one institution that's way far out at the end of that process is psychology. The field of psychology. 3/4 of graduate students in psychology now are women. It is an extremely feminized field. And we see that over and over in other institutions as well, although usually not so far advanced. as fields become feminized, what it looks like to me is they become distinctly unwelcoming to men. Because if you're a man and you're interested in psychology, maybe you're interested in particular branches of psychology that tend to appeal to the male mind more, like neuropsychology, the hard science stuff, whatever. But then you show up in your psychology department and it's a bunch of women and they are not interested in the same aspects of psychology that you are. They're not willing to debate with you in the way that you think academic debate should be conducted. You just find the whole atmosphere really, really feminized and you think, do I really want to spend my career here? I don't think I do.
As a male psychologist, Dr. Orion built a platform discussing male psychology. Dr. Anna, another psychologist with the same qualifications, responded.
Safety. I don't know if he genuinely believes the stuff he's spewing or if he's just capitalizing off a profitable niche. To be honest, I don't give a I'm honestly ashamed to have the same degree as him.
There's nothing remarkable about that. Professionals disagree all the time. What's remarkable is how she disagreed. She repeatedly argued against things Dr. Orion never actually said. Not subtle disagreements, straightforward misrepresentations that fell apart the moment the original clip was played in full. And yet, many of her viewers accepted those rebuttals anyway. This is exactly the distinction Andrews is making. She's arguing that conflict isn't always approached as a search for truth. Sometimes it's approached as a competition.
Are you afraid of the competition, Dr. Taraban?
And once competition becomes the frame, winning can become more important than accurately representing your opponent's position. That's a pattern worth paying attention to.
Can I tell you something crazy about the generational divide?
Yes.
I know so many young people just starting on their careers who say it's rough out there. And the older people, even millennials, don't understand how hard it is out there. And there's a scholar, I think named Daniel Rosado, who put out an article in City Journal about 6 months ago that made a shocking finding. AI resume sorters show a decided bias for female applicants. They ran a study where they had an assortment of resumes, some with male names and some with female names, and they made the qualifications such that they should have favored men and women equally. But something about what's going on in the black box of these AI job seeker programs is consistently favoring women over men. And then that was just with female names, like Brenda versus Carl. Then he did it with explicitly saying this is a female resume, this is a male resume, and the difference got bigger. The female advantage got even larger. So we don't know what it is in the black box that is making it favor women over men, but it is happening. And a majority of firms, and probably an overwhelming majority of firms now, use some form of AI in their HR when they are hiring for jobs. So something that's become really important to the hiring process at a lot of companies is clearly massively, and for reasons we don't understand, biased against men. So if you are a young man finding it impossible to get your foot in the door, even after you've gotten a degree in some STEM field, or you've done all the right things and you can't get a job, if you look at that study and worry that the system is stacked against you, I think you have every right to feel aggrieved by that.
To be fair, there's a separate study, University of Washington, testing the exact same kind of setup, and it found the opposite. AI favoring male names over female names most of the time. Amazon built a hiring AI a few years back and had to scrap it entirely because it taught itself to penalize the word women's on a resume. The main point is this: AI can be programmed to suit whatever agenda you're supporting.
I think one result of the increasing feminization of politics is a decline in legislative or parliamentary repartee, parliamentary heckling. It used to be quite common in your legislature in Great Britain for people in the House of Commons to heckle each other and shout at each other and have rude one-liners, and really the parliamentary debate was an art. And I think most people would agree that that art has declined. Some of that, I believe, is a tendency to adopt feminine modes of rhetoric, which are less friendly to the sort of conflict-oriented repartee that characterized parliamentary debate in the early part of the 20th century. Now, Margaret Thatcher, among her many strengths, was parliamentary repartee. She could take heckling with the best of them. She would not break down and cry or give an emotional response when somebody shouted something from across the other side. So we can't say that women are bad at parliamentary debate, or that they can't deal with or can't handle heckling, because Margaret Thatcher was quite good at it. Nevertheless, if you have a parliament that is majority female, the House of Commons is not majority female at this time, not yet. It probably will be someday. But if you have a parliament in which women have 1/3 representation or greater, your style of debate will become more feminized, and that will be less friendly to the kind of debate that used to occur. So there's just a huge difference between saying any individual woman, like Margaret Thatcher, might be talented in certain male or historically male fields of endeavor. That's fine. But if your entire legislature becomes predominantly female, that will have a change in what kinds of rhetoric you adopt. And that will be determined not by exceptional women who happen to flourish or be talented at the old male modes of debate, but that will be determined by the average woman in your legislature and the general tendency of the female sex and how it tends to argue. So there's just a huge difference between individuals and groups and generalization.
What's the purpose of the cancellation?
To preserve group cohesion. So under masculine norms of conduct, conflict is not the end of the world. Disagreement is sort of okay. You're able to have somebody disagree with you, and you're not going to take it personally or think of it as a catastrophe. You say, oh, okay, that guy over there disagrees with me. I think the world will carry on with each of us adhering to our own particular opinions. Whereas in feminine group dynamics, women are much more likely to gang up on the dissenter and say, wow, you're really rocking the boat here. You're upsetting everybody. Do you want to apologize? Because if you don't, I think maybe we need to exclude you from the group because you're causing too much harm. So that's kind of, and this has been examined by psychologists in really simple experiments, right? Where you're a psychologist and you've got a clinic and you say, all right, I'm going to run an experiment where I get a group of all boys and a group of all girls, and I'm going to present them with a task and I'm going to see what happens. And you really do see that the men will shout at each other and have conflict and then settle into a pecking order, and there will be kind of a top dog and he'll tell the other ones what to do, and then at the end,
as a mom of 3 boys, you have no idea what that looks like at all.
I know. The top dog can be magnanimous or not depending on his mood, thinking about my oldest, and then women will not establish a hierarchy, and even before in a female group, before they even address the task that you've given them, like you've given them a puzzle to put together or whatever, they will first go around the circle and introduce each other and say, okay, let's take turns. Where are you from? Let's bond. The men will not do that at all. Like, even if you tell them, I'm going to be evaluating you on group cohesion at the end of this, so you need to get to know each other, they'll be like, yeah, whatever, I don't care where you're from. Let's do the thing. Men are task-oriented, whereas women are relationship-oriented. And neither one is better than the other. Both of them are great. It's just that for different purposes, one might be more well-suited or not. If you're trying to get something done, guys might have a lot going for them. If you're trying to build an institution that's going to last, that has relationships that will endure, something that will help your community, then that you might want to go to a more female-dominated institution. It all depends on the purpose.
Neither one is better than the other. Say that again for the people in the back. Men and women are not the same. That was never really the argument. The argument is what you do once you've admitted that, and every clip you just watched is really the same collision. A system built one way suddenly filling up with people built to run a different way, and nobody stopped to ask which parts of each should actually be in charge. Helen isn't asking for women to disappear from the workplace. She's asking the same question this channel keeps asking in every corner of the culture we cover. What happens when you stop treating men and women as two halves of the same machine and start treating one like a defective version of the other? Biology didn't get the memo. It never does. Courtroom, boardroom, locker room, comment section. Same pattern every time, because the differences were never the bug. They were the design. Men and women were never built to compete with each other. We were built to complement each other. And every time we forget that, we get exactly what you just watched. Listen to all, follow none.
Management, we working. Protect yourself at all times. This video has officially been highlighted.